As I've already announced, I cannot support the nomination of Elena Kagan to be Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Qualifications for judicial office include both legal experience, which summarizes the past, and judicial philosophy, which describes the future. Ms. Kagan lacks either the judicial or legal practice experience that nearly every Supreme Court justice had when appointed in the history of the Supreme Court. Instead, her experience is primarily academic and political. In fact, some of my Democratic colleagues have said that Ms. Kagan's experience crafting policy and building consensus for political objectives are her most important qualifications for the court. I believe instead that the boundary between the political and the judicial must be strengthened, not blurred. Ms. Kagan's light legal experience puts even more emphasis on her judicial philosophy, which is the most important qualification for judicial service. As I said in 1993 at the confirmation hearing for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a nominee must provide, quote, clear and convincing evidence of understanding the proper role of the judiciary in our system of government, unquote. After studying Ms. Kagan's record, participating in her entire confirmation hearing, and considering the views of concerned citizens in Utah and across America, I have concluded that she does not meet this standard. Mr. Chairman, I ask consent to place in the record a column I wrote for the National Review online outlining in greater detail my reasons for this conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Kagan told this committee that evidence of her judicial philosophy or the kind of justice she would be may be found in looking at her whole life. I took her up on that, examining things such as her own writings as a graduate student and law professor, her praise for certain judges, and her actions in the Clinton administration and as Harvard Law School dean. Ms. Kagan's record shows that she supports an activist judicial philosophy and that her personal and political views drive her legal views. Unfortunately, her hearing before this committee did nothing to counter the picture that emerges from her record. Her approach to answering questions stood in stark contrast to her criticism of past hearings as vapid and hollow charades. She was unwilling to discuss any of the issues that she once wrote were necessary for the Senate properly to evaluate Supreme Court nominees. She was, of course, free to do so, but her choice added very little to the Judiciary Committee's understanding of her record and her qualifications for serving on the Supreme Court. To repeat, there must be clear and convincing evidence that a judicial nominee, especially a Supreme Court nominee, understands the power and proper role of judges in our system of government. She must be committed to the principle that the Constitution controls judges. The judges may not control the Constitution. Looking where Ms. Kagan directed to her life and her record, I conclude that she does not meet this standard. I like her personally. I respect her academic achievements and accomplishments, but I cannot support her appointment to the United States Supreme Court. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.